Welcome to episode 4 of the Dynasty Dreamerz podcast. I'm your host, Joe Galloway. I'm joined again by my co-host, Luigi Federico.
What's up, everybody?
And Ryan Nunn. Happy Super Bowl week. Collectively, we are the Dynasty Dreamerz. We go to bed thinking about Dynasty. We dream about Dynasty. We wake up thinking about Dynasty. You get the picture. Ladies and gentlemen, we are available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts in addition to YouTube. On today's show, we'll be taking a break from roster reviews, and we're going to do a startup mock draft. The rules for this are going to be simple. It's going to be a 12-team Superflex tight end premium startup mock with rookie picks. Each of us will be representing 4 separate teams. There was going to be trade involved, but the two noobs to the left and the right of me decided that they weren't ready for that. So this will be a live draft atmosphere, even though you will be hearing it as a recording. We did not discuss any picks or potential trades before the draft. We hope to get through 4 to 5 rounds, but we will have to see how we are doing on time after each round. Our random drawing before the show started determined that Luigi would have the 101. So take it away, sir.
Okay. With the first team that I will be choosing my players for at the 101, I'm selecting quarterback Josh Allen.
So I anticipated this for Joe Team 1's first pick of the 102. And I feel like it's Christmas because I got undoubtedly the best player in Dynasty football. And I will take with the first pick, my first pick for Team 1. Quarterback Patrick Mahomes. Ryan, on to you with 103.
Well, I do think Mahomes is the best player, but I think they're clearly in a chair together, and you're not going to be unhappy with either one of those guys. You're feeling really well.
Just more happy with Mahomes.
With the third pick, I'm going to take Joe Burrow.
See, Luigi, I told you. When push came to shove, he would go Burrow. There was some question before the draft that Ryan would actually go with a wide receiver with this pick, but I knew he was full.
And I also have Jalen Hurts tiered with him, and I think Hurts has a higher upside, but you can't argue with the fact that Burrow's consistency is just there week in, week out.
Okay, Luigi, Team 2.
Well, that's a great segue into my next pick because at the 104 for Team 2's first pick, I will be selecting Jalen Hurts.
Okay, so Hurts puts me in a bit of a predicament here because this is kind of the last quarterback that I would definitely take over any of the wide receivers, specifically Justin Jefferson. This is a situation that we're all probably going to be in a lot of times this year. And my gut is to take Justin Jefferson here. So that's what I'm going to do with Team 2. Joe Team 2's number 1 pick. At the 105, I'm going to take Justin Jefferson. Guys, any discussion on that? Do you think that it was too early to go wide receiver here? Or is this the sweet spot? Or what do we think?
Well, no, I don't think it's I don't think it's exactly where you want to do that because I'm taking Chase here as well.
That's a bit of an upset to me. I definitely figured there'd be a couple more quarterbacks go off the board before Jamar Chase came off. Am I alone in this group in thinking that Justin Jefferson, I'm not going to say is a clear tier ahead of Jamar Chase, but it's a pretty decent gap in my opinion.
I think you're alone in that, yes.
Okay.
I do. I think the fact that Chase, is going to be tied to Burrow for a long time, and where I feel like Cousins is going to be there, you never know when they're going to pull the rug on somebody else. And hopefully he has that chemistry with the next quarterback, but he may not.
And I'm not saying that I would give like a first with Chase to get Jefferson, but I'll probably do a mid-second to move from Chase to Jefferson. I think that there's that much difference in them. That's just my personal opinion. But Luigi, let's 107. You're Team 3. Who are we going with here?
So just to comment on what you said about is this the right place to take wide receivers? Yeah, I think that's where I have them valued at. I think I had maybe one more player ahead of both of the wide receivers, and that's actually the player I'm going to be taking, being Justin Herbert at the 107. So really I had 5 quarterbacks and then Jefferson and Chase back-to-back there.
Okay, so that moves us on to the 108, which is my Team 3. And I think that this is a pretty slam dunk pick, honestly. I think that my co-host will probably disagree with me. But I'm going to get quarterback Trey Lawrence here with the 108.
Trevor Lawrence.
Trevor Lawrence, yeah.
I do
Whatever.
not disagree with that because that is exactly where I had him.
Ryan, you got any problems with Lawrence there at the 108?
No, I don't have any problems. I have him tiered with the next guy that I'm going to take. I think they're actually interchangeable, and that is Justin Fields.
Wow. Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence are interchangeable in your eyes?
Yes, absolutely.
Explain.
Just the elite legs. Like he basically got a half a season to be the quarterback that he wanted to be, like before they let him actually run the ball, and he accumulated over 1,000 yards on the ground. Like he may not be a great NFL quarterback, but he is an elite quarterback in Dynasty.
Ryan, you and I have not been fans of a guy like Lamar Jackson since day one. We've never come around on him. Maybe a little bit. He's higher in our tiers than he used to be. Why does a guy like Justin Fields, who's basically just a younger version of Lamar Jackson, in my opinion, who hasn't done Lamar Jackson as well as Lamar Jackson up until this point, why does he get all this credit where he's literally your QB 7 here or 6 interchangeably with Lawrence, whenever Lamar Jackson's been so down on your tier list for so many years?
It's one of those things where I believe in Fields' arm talent. I'll think that the problem with his arm is less about him and more about the offense and lack of weapons around him. And I think at some point they are going to correct that. Like you can't have a guy like Darnell Mooney be your number one option in offense. He's just not that guy.
I don't disagree with that, but if Fields had shown me any kind of ability to throw the football with the weapons he has, which aren't great, then maybe I would be more with you. But he looks like a guy who just get you points on the ground. He's not giving you anything in the passing game at all.
Are you going to trust Darnell Mooney to throw the ball to? I mean, Cole Kmet. I mean, these
Hey,
guys,
he's got Chase Claypool now.
Yeah, they spent a second-round pick on a guy that they could have gotten a better wide receiver out of this class with. Congratulations.
Well, why not just take a guy like Trevor Lawrence, who has shown that he is a pretty good thrower of the football? I agree that if your argument is that Lawrence isn't all the way there yet, I'm sure I don't believe he is either, but he's shown us so much more ability with the arm than Justin Fields has. He doesn't have the rushing upside, but I guess my argument always is in these type situations is good luck with Justin Fields in 4 to 5 years when he's no longer playing, and I have 6 to 7 more years of what I feel like is going to end up being pretty elite production from Trevor Lawrence. I don't understand the argument for Fields over Trevor Lawrence.
Where I think Trevor Lawrence is probably going to be a career low-end QB1. Justin Fields may not have as many years, but you're looking at a guy that I think will be a top 5 guy most of those years.
Luigi, any thoughts here?
Yeah, I guess this is 2017 when Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields were seniors in high school, and that's when they were considered interchangeable.
Well, actually, they weren't even then. If you remember correctly, Trevor Lawrence has been like the biggest prospect since Peyton Manning ever since probably middle school.
Yes, but they were
Other than Andrew Luck?
Yes, but they were so much closer their senior years. They were considered to be the number 1 and number 2 prospects in the class, and it wasn't that far apart.
Trevor Lawrence was considered a bigger prospect than even Andrew Luck.
Yes,
so you're wrong about that.
Justin Fields, his last year in college, threw for 41 touchdowns. He has shown in the past that he can throw the ball with elite talent.
Well, Trent Richardson won a Heisman Trophy in college and was out of the league in 3 years. So don't give me college stats. They mean nothing. What you do in the NFL is completely separate from what you do in college. The two things are what happens in college only gives us a gauge of what we think someone might be. It doesn't really tell us anything concrete.
So you can say the same thing about Trevor Lawrence.
You're correct, but Trevor Lawrence has shown in the last 2 years that he can throw the football in the NFL.
Yeah, he was the 32nd ranked quarterback his rookie season. He was obviously elite.
He was the 32nd ranked quarterback by what metric?
QB rating.
Is that accurate?
Mm-hmm. Let's look. All right, looking at the 2021 QBR rankings, Trevor Lawrence was 31st. And anybody want to guess who was 32nd?
I have no idea. I'm surprised that Lawrence was that low, honestly. I knew he didn't have a good rookie season. I didn't realize it was that bad.
Well, I'm sure since you're bringing this up that it had to have been Justin Fields.
It was Justin Fields.
So the only one worse than Trevor Lawrence as a rookie was Justin Fields. So
Right, but Trevor Lawrence is a statue, and Justin Fields can run the ball.
okay, all right. Let's move on because we could probably argue this all night long, and Ryan would come up on the wrong end of it for many hours. But let's continue on to the next pick.
All right. For my fourth team. All right. For team 4, I'm going to be taking – this is going to be a no-no with this group, but I'm going to be taking the first running back of the first round, and that is going to be Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, that is interesting. I never take running backs in the first round. To me, there are at least 3, probably 4 quarterbacks who I would even consider taking Bijan Robinson over. And Bijan Robinson isn't I don't know. This is probably going to sound this one really surprises me. This is way off in my opinion. But I do know, based on the conversations that we've been having about Bijan Robinson trades, that this might not be that far off with the rest of the Dynasty community. What do you think, Ryan?
I won't own any Bijan at this price. Just absolutely will not. I'll be wrong, just like I was wrong with Jonathan Taylor. I miss sometimes. I was wrong on Jonathan Taylor. I'll be wrong on Bijan Robinson. And then I'll adjust and pay extra if I need to at a later date. But I'm not paying that price right off the bat.
And let me be clear, it's not really a slight on Bijan Robinson.
No, I think he's a great player.
It's just a slight on taking a running back at 109. It's just not something that I would ever do. But I do have him as my running back 1, so at least I don't think Luigi's.
I have him as my 1 too. There's position players in this format that I'm going to take over him.
We do need to probably mention that Luigi is far more likely in a startup draft to go win now than you and I are. We generally come into the
productive struggle type thing.
Productive struggle mindset. And
right.
Then if the draft pushes us in another direction, then we do go that way. But then that puts me up, and this puts me in a position I did not want to be in. So this would be my first share of this guy ever, I think, in Dynasty. But I'm going to take quarterback Lamar Jackson with the 110 here. And it's very odd. I know that this is the first year that I'm putting some faith in Lamar Jackson, considering he has more questions than he ever has going into next season. But to me, Lamar Jackson has finally, after 4 years or whatever it's been, has shown me enough before he got hurt this year and in the years past that he is deserving of a first-round startup pick. And I'm just way late to the party, apparently.
I think Joe just doesn't like Baltimore Ravens. I think that's just what it is. Because the guy's hurt half the year, and now he's shown that he's worthy enough to be taken in the first round.
I think maybe that this is a little bit of I've missed out on this guy in the past. And there are a couple of quarterbacks still on the board that I have very close to Lamar Jackson, and I thought about pulling the trigger on one of those. But I think maybe it's time to start going into this season, maybe start gathering some shares of Lamar Jackson. Actually, I misspoke on the last few picks. Fields was the 109, Bijan was the 110, and Lamar Jackson was the 111. That brings us to you at the 112, Ryan. What are you doing with your last team here on the wheel?
Well, I'm going to go ahead and just group these two guys together. I'm going to take Kyler Murray with the first one and Kyle Pitts with the next one.
Interesting. I was not expecting Pitts to go this early. I actually wasn't expecting Murray to go this early either. So please explain your reasoning here.
Well, both of these guys are obviously elite talents. There is some major question marks, but I'm just not willing to give up on Pitts. I assume that they're going to get the quarterback position right. And when they do, he's going to explode like everybody in the Dynasty community thinks.
I agree on not giving up on Pitts on the shares of him that I already have. Although I have said 2 out of the last 3 weeks before today that I was trading him on certain teams or would trade him on certain teams. I just don't know if I'm willing to spend a first-round pick on him, or I guess technically this is the first pick of the second round, on him this year after what we saw last season. I don't know if I want to invest that heavily in him right now with what we've seen. And I feel that way about Murray too. Murray feels like there should have been a couple of guys taken ahead of him at the quarterback position here.
Once again, super high on Murray's upside. When a healthy Kyler Murray is, in my mind, you could argue is just as good as Justin Herbert. And I would have taken Pitts over Bijan. Like, I think for me, he would have been the next non-quarterback player.
I completely agree that he's the next non-quarterback player. I would have taken him over Bijan easily, but including Murray, there's at least two more quarterbacks still on the board that I would take easily over Pitts.
So you said including Murray? So there's one other?
Well, two more besides Murray.
Okay.
Sorry. There's at least two more that I would have taken over Murray here, or over Pitts here, excuse me. And both of these the quarterbacks that I'm speaking of, I would take over Murray as well, which that will segue into.
I have one more thing to say.
Okay.
The fact that I took Murray and the fact that he may not be ready for the end of the season, beginning of the season, also made me think that taking Pitts, who may take a little more time to develop with the quarterback chemistry, hopefully that he gets.
I do agree with you that it's a good pairing. If you're going to look to win later, you've got one player who we don't know when he's going to ascend to the top again, like he was as rookie, and then you have a player that's going to potentially be hurt for the first half of the year. So I agree with you on that. I just personally would have slammed two quarterbacks, and I would have slammed two quarterbacks other than Kyler Murray.
My other pick was obviously a quarterback, but I decided to go with the upside of Pitts in a 2.0 premium.
So I'm curious about this. So obviously this is a mock draft, and we have nothing on the line here. Do you think if we were doing a live startup right now, you would have made the same decision?
Probably. We'll see what happens.
So that brings us to the 202, which is my team 4 that started off with first round taking Lamar Jackson. I feel like the second round of a startup draft, if you're actually making the picks and not trading them, which is what I would probably be doing, but if you're actually making the picks, that's where your team starts forming, is in the second round. Your identity starts forming in the second round. It probably doesn't fully form until the 4th or the 5th round, but you should already be trying to decide where you think your team might be going. Whenever you're picking in the first round, for the most part, you're just taking best player available.
Unless you're taking a running back.
Well, correct, because running backs are never the best player available. But, or more specifically, maybe you're taking the best quarterback available in most cases in the first round, if you think the way Ryan and I do. With that being said, I'm going to put somebody with Lamar Jackson here that had a rough year last year and the year before that, actually. And most of it was not on the football field. But I saw enough from Deshaun Watson that I think that I feel strongly taking him at the 202 and putting him with Lamar Jackson. So I'm going to take Watson here at 202, and Luigi, passing on to you.
With my 4th team that I will be choosing for, which is the 203, the team that took Bijan Robinson will be taking Dak Prescott. Like I specified, taking a running back in the first round, you're pretty well looking to go win now. And I think needing a quarterback, I think Dak Prescott is the best option. If I hadn't have taken a running back in the first round, I may be looking at somebody more like Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, but needing a win now type team, I'm looking at Dak Prescott.
So this is interesting to me because this is just the way that I think. To me, Prescott is the end of a quarterback tier here for us. I know that not everybody will agree with that, but by taking Bijan at the 109 with that team, I felt like that you gambled. In my mind, you gambled quite a bit, because if Lamar, Murray, and Watson and Prescott had been mine and Ryan's next 4 picks, then what do you do with that 109? Not specifically a player, but are you going quarterback there? Or are you moving on to a different position and just waiting later for your quarterbacks?
No, I actually have another quarterback in the same tier as Dak Prescott. I'm not going to name drop the player, but when he comes off the board, I'll say that was a player that I have in the same tier as Dak.
Okay. So, Ryan, we're heading to your team 3 that started it off with Justin Fields. Here at the 204, what are you doing?
So it's probably the guy that I have above Dak Prescott and Deshaun Watson, and that's Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah, I have Tua in the same tier as Dak Prescott.
Okay. you guys are going to have to explain this to me because I'm not saying that Tua couldn't end up outscoring Dak Prescott next year or the year after that, or Watson or any of these guys we've been talking about. That's completely that could happen. But with all of the question marks with Tua Tagovailoa and his health, with the concussions, why are we taking him over a guy like Dak Prescott?
I think the question marks that are surrounding Tua are just as valid as certain question marks that could be surrounding Deshaun Watson. However, I do have Deshaun Watson in a tier above Tua, so it's really just Dak and Tua that I have in the same tier.
I disagree with you on that because at this point in time, there's a much greater chance that Tua Tagovailoa just doesn't play football anymore, as opposed to Watson, who seems to pretty much be out of the clear from that standpoint. So with the 205, that team took Trevor Lawrence in the first round. This is a really tough pick, and since I have to make it pretty quickly, I'm probably not going to put as much thought into it as I normally would. It comes down to a quarterback. I think I'm going to go CeeDee Lamb here. I'm going to put CeeDee Lamb with Trevor Lawrence. The quarterback tier, like I just said, has kind of broke, in my opinion. I'm not taking a running back this early. I typically don't take running backs in the second round either, especially whenever there's a wideout of Lamb's talent left on the board. And it's a little too early for anyone to take a tight end not named Kyle Pitts, in my opinion. So I'll just go with Lamb. Any thoughts on that, guys?
Nope. I agree with the pick.
There's only one wide receiver that I could even consider taking over him, but I'm not going to argue one way or the other on CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, there is only one wide receiver that I have that's left on the board that I would consider taking above Lamb, which actually segues me into my next pick. With my team 3, this team has Justin Herbert already. I will be taking A.J. Brown.
Yep, that's my guy.
Yeah, it's really hard to argue this pick with you already having a quarterback in tow, and the elite young wide receivers are fastly coming off the board. So I think this is probably where I would win too.
Okay, with this pick, teaming it up with Jamar Chase, I'm going to take Bryce Young.
Or the 102, either way you want to look at it.
Correct.
But I would agree that it will be Bryce Young. But
I'm taking Bryce Young over C.J. Stroud
at this point. But a lot could happen.
No, I'm taking Bryce Young over C.J.
Okay. So Ryan's taking the 102 to pair with Jamar Chase. So definitely going with a win later approach, which is what I was kind of saying in the second round. With Jamar Chase, he could have went either direction, but he's, in my mind, he's now made a clear determination of where he's trying to go. So I've got the same thing facing me with the next pick here at the 208. I already have Justin Jefferson. The quarterbacks are kind of off the board. I could go with one of the young guys and make this a win later team. But what I think I'm actually going to do is, with as good as Justin Jefferson is right now, and there not being an elite quarterback left on the board, I think I just want to transition this probably to a win later team, considering that win now team, excuse me. I'm going to go ahead and pair Justin Jefferson with the best, most productive, youngish tight end in this draft this year, and I'm going to put Mark Andrews on my team with Justin Jefferson. Just too soon for Mark Andrews, guys?
No, because probably where I was headed with my next pick.
Is there any argument for any other tight ends here, or is this just clearly the tight end 2 pick this year? I think it is.
I think you could argue Kelce, depending on how heavily you like him over Mark Andrews, because he's still going to be productive the next 2 or 3 years, and he'll probably outscore Mark Andrews the next 2 or 3 years. I don't think you made the wrong pick having Justin Jefferson, but somebody who, has Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen may feel differently.
Right.
So, I mean, I might even consider Hockenson over him. Just the fact that as long as Cousins comes back, which I assume he's going to, they have a lot of chemistry. And I don't look for Thielen to be back. So I look for JJ and him to kind of eat.
Yeah. So at the 209, Luigi, Jalen Hurts is on that team already. Where are we going?
It's kind of hard to pass up this player, I think. I would say most people are probably going to head this way, having Jalen Hurts on the team. But I am going to take Jonathan Taylor.
This is probably going to become a theme of this draft as we go along. Luigi's going to end up with most of the running backs. And Ryan and I may end up looking foolish because of that. We'll just see how it goes here. So next up is going to be Ryan's first team at the 210, who took Joe Burrow with his first pick.
I'm going to pair him with a wide receiver and go with Jalen Waddle.
Jalen Waddle. Okay, this is there's a couple of wide receiver here that I wouldn't argue with either way. There's one other guy. So yeah, this makes a lot of sense to me.
Oh yeah, I only have one other guy above Jalen Waddle.
I may or may not have a man crush on Jalen Waddle, but
yeah,
there may be two actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think there's two guys I have above Jalen Waddle.
I am much higher on Jalen Waddle than the average person.
Yeah, he was wide receiver 5 there. So moving on to the 211. I took Patrick Mahomes with the first pick. This is tough. There are 3 things I'm really strongly considering here. I think I'm going to stick to the wide receiver position and pair Patrick Mahomes with the last of what I consider kind of the elite young wide receivers and take Amon-Ra St. Brown here to pair with Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, whenever I said I had 2 guys, that was one of them.
Well, obviously, I don't agree with Amon-Ra being there. I think Jalen Waddle is a clear step ahead and a tier break for me. So,
well, Waddle was one of the 6 too. It's just you took him instead of Amon-Ra.
But you have St. Brown higher on your.
Sure, I do, but they're pretty interchangeable.
I think 4 through 6 is pretty interchangeable there.
I probably have AJ a little higher than the other 2, but we're
I have
splitting hairs here.
I have Waddle in the same tier as AJ, so I'm obviously higher on that guy. Okay. I told you I'm kind of through the moon for him.
Luigi, 212 here, and I guess 301. Who are you putting with Josh Allen?
So at 212, I will be taking Travis Kelce.
Wow.
Like I said a little while ago, I think having somebody like Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, I think you're having 2 of the top 3 players at the position, whether you consider Travis Kelce to be 1, 2, or 3. I think he's, in a lot of people's minds, going to be the tight end 1 for the next 2 or 3 years. So it does give me an extremely smaller win now window, but having Josh Allen, who I personally think is the quarterback 1, adding Travis Kelce, who I think is the tight end 1, I think I have the 2 top players at the position for at least 3 years.
There's no doubt that you're heading in the direction of an extremely great win now team, excuse me. But just for me personally, it's really hard for me to take somebody of Travis Kelce's age in the 2nd round. But I know that there are plenty of people who do it, so I'm not going to argue with this pick too much.
You can't argue his production on the field.
You can't argue his production.
Travis Kelce just wins championships.
I just
especially when you pair him with a guy like Josh Allen. You've got elite production in both spots.
I don't question his production at all. No, I fully expect he'll be the most productive tight end again next year.
I think he's got 2 more years of elite production, and then I'll look for him to probably start to fall off.
So who are you putting with Allen and Kelce?
So I'm going to be pairing those 2 guys.
This is going to be good.
with another running back here.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense.
And I'm going to be pairing them with Christian McCaffrey.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So
love it, my RB2.
Yeah, McCaffrey's currently my RB6. There's too much wear and tear on that body at this point. But Luigi's probably going to be in a really good spot to win a championship with his team, depending on what he gets going forward. But so I can't even argue that point of it. His longevity, we'll see.
That team minus injuries is ready to romp and stomp.
Yeah, so that brings me back to my team here. And I've said this a lot, but I hate this spot because the player I want to take conflicts with a player I already have on my team. So I'm not going to go in that direction. I'm actually going to take a running back here. Believe it or not, 3rd round, first running back for any of my 4 teams. I'm going to take Breece Hall. I know that most people have Kenneth Walker ahead of Breece Hall, and I understand the reasons why. I just feel like that I'm willing to gamble a little bit on Hall because I do think that he has more upside than Kenneth Walker. That's my personal opinion. I think he's more talented. I think we thought that going into the NFL draft. I think we thought that the first times we saw the two of them on the field, and I still believe that. So I'm going to gamble a little bit with Breece Hall here.
I actually like that pick, Joe. Breece Hall, before he went down with an injury, was the consensus RB1 in Dynasty and was just electrifying on the field. Like, every time he touched the ball, he looked like he was going to take it to the house, and did a lot of the times. Like, in fact, he got injured on a long run. So,
yeah, normally I would, if I was drafting a running back this early, I would just take the safer guy. But if I cannot put Walker ahead of Hall in my rankings as of right now.
I have Breece Hall, I think 4 slots ahead of Kenneth Walker.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I have Walker.
I have him 3-4.
I have Walker 3 and Hall 5, but I can easily say that they're interchangeable to me. Walker is much safer.
That's the only reason why they're interchangeable, in my opinion.
Right, exactly. But talent-wise, Hall's upside is much greater than Walker.
So, Ryan, we are headed into the 303 here. Who are you putting with Burrow and Waddle on this team?
Well, I love having a good tight end on my teams, and I'm taking T.J. Hockenson.
See, this is the thing that where I got stuck with the last pick. I really don't like having multiple pass catchers on the same team, but
They're not on the same team, Joe.
Oh, my gosh, I'm stuck in early 2022. You're absolutely right, and I messed up. I should have taken T.J. Hockenson. I apologize to everyone listening. I had a major brain fart there.
I mean, I even talked about how he was paired with Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins earlier.
Yeah.
And you still blew it.
I did blow it because I would absolutely, if I'd have remembered that T.J. Hockenson now plays for the Minnesota Vikings, I would have definitely taken him there ahead of.
I very much appreciate the fact that you weren't paying attention.
Whenever you made,
I was paying attention. I just had him on the wrong team.
Whenever you made the comment that it conflicts with the player, I thought to myself,
I was like,
you should have said something there.
I wanted Hockenson.
I was hoping he fell to my next team.
Yeah, I would have taken. I am super high on Hockenson. Good pick, Ryan. I can't believe that I messed that one up. Definitely wouldn't have happened if this was an actual mock draft with more than 15 seconds to make a pick. But this just proves that we are doing this live, and there's no pick orders here because that is definitely not a pick I would have made. But anyways, moving on to you, Luigi, at the 304. Who are you putting with Hurts and Jonathan Taylor?
I think there is a pretty desperate need for a wide receiver on this team. Like you stated before, the young wide receivers are kind of falling out fast. And I think my team with Jalen Hurts and Jonathan Taylor kind of could go either way, at least this year. So I'm going to take the guy that I had as the wide receiver 1 in the class last year, and I'm going to go with Chris Olave.
Oh, Luigi fooled both of us because Ryan and I were sitting here just kind of pointing to Tyreek Hill on our page. So we very much figured he was going in that direction. So Chris Olave, tell us why.
Well, so I have been watching Ohio State for the last few years. I play in a campus to Canton league, which you own college players, and they're the points that they get on game day you get for your team, just like you do in regular NFL fantasy. And I own Chris Olave, so I kept an eye on him. I think the last 3 years, and I just think his talent is above any of the other wide receivers not named Garrett Wilson. And it's between those two guys, it's kind of a toss up. And because I guess I have a smaller man crush on Chris Olave, I just decided to go with Olave.
Okay. It's one thing's for sure. Whenever you're doing any kind of Devy type thing, best thing to do is draft wide receivers from LSU and wide receivers from Ohio State. You're very likely not going to miss.
Yeah, that's a pretty safe general rule of thumb there. So at the 305 on the team that has Justin Jefferson and Mark Andrews, this is the one team that is kind of, I feel like, with no young quarterbacks yet, and Jefferson and Andrews being so productive at their positions, this is the one team that's pretty clearly win now, even though it could go win well later. Those guys are definitely young enough. But my first thought is to get a quarterback here, but with the exception of the 103, this is a barren wasteland of quarterback right now. That the value is not at the quarterback position, in my opinion. And Brian disagrees with me. He's going to say Trey Lance. But I'm going to take a player. I'm going to go running back again, actually, and take the guy that I took Breece Hall over and go Kenneth Walker here to put with Jefferson and Andrews. And even though I'm not a big fan of taking running backs this early, I think that this team is often running to be very, very competitive next year with young upside as well.
It's kind of funny that you said something about the 103 because the 103 is what I'm taking.
I absolutely knew you were going to slam the 103, and this is the team that should be doing it with Chase and the one.
I'm set up so well to do that with this team.
So he's putting the 103 with Chase and the 102.
So it's Stroud, Young, and Chase.
Right.
I think it's kind of important to put a name beside it at this point because
I think that for the first
so that it's an easy way for people to get a feel of what you're doing with your roster.
I think the first 3 picks are pretty academic, though. I think 104 is where you start having some argument, but
like you could see the combine push somebody else up there. I think
that's absolutely true, but this is pre-combine, so I think it's pretty academic at this point. Luigi, where are you going with the 307? You're going to add this guy to Herbert and A.J. Brown.
I'm going to be taking Tyreek Hill with this team. I think having Justin Herbert, who is always going to give me QB1 production when he's on the field, and having the upside of Tyreek Hill and A.J. Brown, I think I'm pretty well set at those 2 positions, at least a headway the start of the team.
Okay. So that brings me to the 307, and I've got Lawrence and Lamb on this team, so it could definitely go win now, could definitely go win later, could really have all kinds of room here. The board is really starting to not look very exciting to me, to be honest with you, but I do have one player ranked highly, probably the most. I have this guy as my wide receiver 7. So we'll go ahead and take Garrett Wilson here at the 307. Or no, I'm sorry. This is the 308. Yes, I'm going to take Garrett Wilson, pair him with Lawrence and Lamb. Garrett Wilson showed quite a bit last year with a very porous quarterback situation for most of the season. I don't see him doing anything but ascending in value based on that. I fully expect the Jets are going to be better at that position next year, and I think Garrett Wilson is going to continue to just climb further and further up the rankings.
I agree. Like I said, I have Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson pretty similar in terms of value and in my rankings. So I guess seeing Garrett go 4 picks behind Chris Olave is exactly really where I would place him.
This next pick sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, this next pick
is interesting to me. There's so many different ways you could go on this board.
Yeah, only the second team with 2 quarterbacks, or a third team with
which is
I'm actually going to go with the guy that we spent all last episode kind of hating on. I'm going to take T. Higgins here. It would be my first share of him.
This is the reason why that's interesting to me is because I know there's a guy on the board that you have higher than him. That's why this is so interesting to me.
I like Higgins. I mean, I'm not opposed to having Higgins. So
why wouldn't you take the gentleman that I'm talking about that you clearly have ahead of T. Higgins in your rankings, and the way you made it sound last week, quite a bit ahead of T. Higgins?
Just like it's a diversified thing for me. Like I would.
Yeah, all of your fake dynasty shares are going
to
crumble.
Exactly.
You have still 0 shares of T. Higgins.
Until we get done with this episode, I have 1 damn share.
Okay, so moving on to the 309. After that extremely interesting pick, Luigi, how are you going to follow that up?
I'm going to be following it up with a wide receiver, and I am going to be taking Cooper Kupp.
Oh, that's a little surprising to me. Not that I greatly disagree with it. or
I
anything.
think a lot of rankings have Cooper Kupp somewhere around there. Probably, I mean, he's more than likely top 10 in most dynasty rankings, and I think his upside is just wide receiver 1, and I think he has a very safe floor as well.
And you're pretty clearly going win now with that team, considering you've already taken the running back, right?
Yeah, and having taken a running back and having Dak Prescott, those are two guys who. I mean, Bijan Robinson, obviously, like I said, I think he's going to end up being the RB1 for the next 5 years at least. Who knows? Somebody else could come along and overtake him. But having Dak Prescott, who is a veteran, who is consistently in the top 12, and then adding Cooper Kupp to the team, I think the direction has to be win now.
Okay. So at the 311, this is the player I'm going to add to Lamar Jackson and Deshaun Watson, and I can already tell you in advance the next pick is going to be Trey Lance, or one of the next 2 picks is going to be Trey Lance before Ryan pulls a fastball and takes him with the 401 instead of the 312. But I already have 2 quarterbacks, so I'm not interested in Trey Lance. And with Lamar Jackson and Deshaun Watson on this team already, I feel like I can win now. Granted, Lamar Jackson has a little bit some question marks with his contract and where he's going to end up playing, but I definitely think he's going to be playing somewhere next year. I'm going to take DK Metcalf because he's my top-ranked wide receiver on the board at this point. He's the best of the veteran wide receivers left, in my opinion. Not from strictly a production standpoint, but just from an overall dynasty value standpoint. He's the best veteran left, and he's still fairly young enough that I don't have to feel like that he's going to be done in 3 to 4 years. Any ideas on that, gentlemen?
No, I love the pick. DK, great. I mean, there's not much you can say. He just continually gets better.
And honestly, when you made the Higgins pick, I thought for sure that Luigi was going to go Metcalf just because of the age difference. And I was very happy whenever he took Cooper Kupp. It's one of the first times in this whole draft, though, there was clearly a guy that I thought I should take in the position.
I have actually have 3 wide receivers ahead of DK
that are
at this
left
point.
on the board still.
Yeah.
So you're looking at you're. I think that what you guys have seen in this draft is that Luigi values production probably a lot more highly than Ryan and I do in a startup draft, because he's made the picks like Tyreek and Kupp and Kelce, and we're just kind of here trying to pick the most productive players possible, but also trying to stay fairly young. So that being said, the clearest win later team on the board, second clearest win later team on the board. Ryan, let us know what you're doing with the wheel here.
You nailed it. Trey Lance is the pick here for me. Love the player, love the upside, fits well with Kyler, Pitts, an all around great fit for this roster.
I can't even argue it at this point. I mean, this is the end of the 3rd round. This is where I feel like Trey Lance should be going. Maybe a little higher, but not any higher than this. I think that you got the proper value here. I thought coming into this, you thought you might have to take Trey Lance earlier than you thought you would, but this seems right to me.
Yeah, I think, like you said, at the end of the 3rd round, and he's got Kyler, who's probably going to miss half of the season.
Right.
And he's got Kyle Pitts, who, we don't know who his quarterback is going to be next year, and he showed he's not quarterback proof. So they may be looking into 2024 before they actually get him a quarterback.
But predictably, you and I, with all of our win now teams, and Ryan might even have one, we all avoided Trey Lance like the plague. And I think that that's what you're going to see in these startups.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that you're going to see that in established leagues too.
So it's kind of funny because I don't have a win now team on it. He's all for modern win later.
I think your Burrow, Waddle, Hockenson is definitely a win now.
Easily go either way.
But it could very easily go the other way too.
It could, but it's win now right now. Right now it's win now or win later. So Ryan, actually Team 3, if you believe in Fields as much as you say you do, could be a win let now team too.
Could be.
So anyways, who are you taking with the 401 to pair with Murray, Pitts, and Trey Lance?
The guy I have is the best wide receiver left on the board, and that's Devontae Smith. I love how he has continued to grow throughout the season, and He's paired to a great quarterback. I love doing that.
I think there's a lot of guys similarly kind of rated here, in my opinion.
So there are guys that are more productive. Like there's guys like Adams and Diggs and those type guys.
Right.
But with this roster, they just don't fit the profile.
I kind of half expected you to go with the 104 here, so you could just get your top wide out of this class, because by the time the NFL draft rolls around, don't you think it's highly plausible that you'll have one of these wide receivers ahead of DeVonta Smith?
It's possible, but Smith was high on coming out of college, and he has continued to grow in that offense. And I think it's a 1A, 1B with him and Brown. Like, you just never know which guy is going to be the guy who gets the majority of the targets. And honestly, Smith is really starting to push Brown as the number one on that team.
Okay. So with the 402, I have a team that now consists of Jackson, Watson, and DK Metcalf. This team feels very win now and win later to me. Could go either way. I want to go with a more win now guy here. But I think what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to gamble a little bit. I could easily take Travis Etienne. That would probably be the non-pick player I would take here if I was staying in that range. But I think I'm going to go 104 for a couple of reasons. Number one, Jahmyr Gibbs could land in a spot where I would absolutely almost value him as high as Travis Etienne. Like if he ended up in a Buffalo or, goodness gracious, a Kansas City, either one of those spots, and I think that I would value him very equally to Travis Etienne.
But do you think that could be a trap, a la CEH?
No, I don't. I think CEH just isn't very good at football at this point. I think we all believe that. I think Isaiah Pacheco is starting to show that. And this is not a dig at Luigi. You asked the question. I'm giving you my honest opinion.
Right? Yeah. I mean,
I think
Luigi's the only one sitting here that has a different opinion.
I've stated on the podcast he was never a great running back. He was never a great runner of the football, and I stated that multiple times. The thing is, Kansas City doesn't use him in the passing game. He was an elite running back when it came to the passing game or receiving game. But all they want to do is they want to put him on 3rd and goal from the 1 yard line, try to have him stuff it in, and that was never what he was good at.
Well, the other reason I'm taking the 104 here is not only could it be Jahmyr Gibbs in one of those premier landing spots, but what if, for the sake of argument, one of these top guys that we have, a Johnston or an Addison or a JSN
or a Boutte.
Or a Boutte, fine, whatever. What if one of those guys ends up in Kansas City? Then this, in all honesty, if that happens, this pick could be the pick of the draft right here.
Once again, this year's Sky Moore.
Well, Sky Moore was not touted the way these guys.
No, he wasn't.
I'm saying if one of the top guys ends up in this spot, what does that pick become worth? That pick, I might be able to flip that pick to one of you guys for a guy that's already been drafted before now.
Sure.
Especially with Ryan, who's piloting primarily win later teams, it seems. So yeah, I'm taking him there at the 104. I'm taking the 104 there, and Luigi, I'll kick it back to you at
the 403.
403. There we go.
So at the 403. The team has Bijan Robinson, Dak Prescott, and Cooper Kupp. I'm going to be taking Austin Eckler. I don't think there's any running back.
I told you, Ryan. I 100% knew that's where he's going with his pick.
I didn't think there was any running back left on the board that was a better win now running back than Austin Eckler, and I think the team is pretty clearly going in the win now direction. The only one you can make an argument for might be Saquon Barkley, but I think Austin Eckler has a safer floor.
I'm just going to stack all the running backs in a pile and sit them over by Luigi and let him just filter through them and take them as he wants, because he's kind of got a monopoly on those guys.
Hey, I've only taken 3 running backs. Joe has taken 2. So let's be real about that.
You guys are overachievers.
Oh, I've taken 4. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I apologize. I've taken 4. Joe's taken 2.
That doesn't add up. I don't have a huge problem with this pick, but there's no way I could take Austin Eckler over Travis Etienne here with the difference in age. Now, I will say this. The other guy that's big name that's left at running back on the board, I don't hate that you took this guy over that guy at all. and we won't spoil that yet, but I'm assuming you're going to take him with your next pick. So let's move on to.
We'll see.
Let's move on to the where are we at here now, Luigi? The 404.
404.
Ryan, what are you doing with Fields, Tua, and Higgins? What do you add to that team?
I'm going to break the seal here and take a running back.
Oh, my God. I told you this was a win-now team.
No, we're going to make this a win-now team. Travis Etienne with this pick.
Yeah, this is if you're going to go running back, I feel like this is the easy pick here. I'm not taking Quadzilla over Travis Etienne.
I mean, I might take Quadzilla over Travis Etienne with a different team, but the way that your team is presently constructed, having Fields, Tua, and Higgins, I think Etienne is clearly the pick to take there.
It's clearly the running back.
That's what I mean. The running back.
And I can't really even argue it with what we've got left at wide receiver on the board. So it's a good pick. Luigi, what are you doing here with the 405?
Well, Joe, that is your pick.
It is your pick.
Oh, what am I doing with the 405? Okay. So Lawrence, Lamb, and Wilson definitely could go either direction with this team. And I will not be taking Quadzilla with this team. There aren't any tight ends that I feel particularly happy to take here. I think it's a little bit going to be a little while before we take another wide tight end at this point. I think that I'm going to take the 105 here. I'm going to add my wide receiver 1 if Gibbs goes at 104, or my wide receiver 2, most likely, if Gibbs isn't taken at 104. But, who knows? Depending on how the rest of my team plays out, and if Gibbs is on the board there at 105, I might just take him. There's lots of flexibility here. I don't think that there is a player left on the board that I think has more value than the 105. So why not just take it?
It's the only thing here that's going to, for sure, is going to gain value from now until the end of the offseason.
Right, because I'm not taking Barkley here. I'm not taking Jacobs. I'm not taking Kittle or Goddard. Goddard entered my mind a little bit, but this is just too early for him, in my opinion.
I think it's crazy that there are people who have Goddard above Hockenson.
I do as well, and we obviously think that since Hockenson went early third, and we're here in the middle of the fourth, and he's still
and if you hadn't messed up on the Hall pick, you would have taken Hockenson, and I took him right afterwards. So we all both value him at the same.
He would have went at 302 if I hadn't messed up.
Right? Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to Luigi here at 406. Herbert, AJ Brown, and Tyreek Hill. Wait, hold on a second. It's going to be Saquon Barkley.
It is not going to be Saquon
Barkley. An upset.
With the 406, I think I'm going to go another wide receiver there. I'm going to go Stephon Diggs. I think I'm going into the season having 3 of the top 6 productive wide receivers, maybe not in actual rankings, but I don't think I can pass up on Stephon Diggs there.
The good part about what you're doing with that roster, you're not selling out to win now, because all of these guys have several years of production. So you've got a window there with these guys. So
he's drafting all wide receivers,
right?
Running backs.
You've got so much more safety net whenever you're drafting wide receivers.
Yeah, I don't mind what he's doing with the team. I don't love it as much. If I'm going 3 wide here, I'm probably the last 2 picks going a little younger than he did, but I don't hate it. Let's turn it over to Ryan at the 407 here with Chase, the 102 and the 103, and I fully expect him to continue the draft pick barrage here. Wouldn't you say, Luigi?
Yeah, I don't think there's any player on the board right now that I value over the 106.
Not with a win later team.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, there's definitely like other players.
So
but...
Are you going to surprise us here, Ryan?
Yeah, I guess you guys got me there. I think the 106 is probably the pick here. Just the flexibility of being able to take the best wide out, or a guy like Levis or someone like that if he tends to rise. This team with so much youth, and the 101 or the 102, the 103, now the 106 and Jamar Chase, love the future of this team.
Yeah, I think that there was some, maybe you can make an argument for a young wideout that's already on the board, but there's not really an argument there once you really think about it. You just have so much flexibility with the 106. You're going to get one of your top 3 wideouts guaranteed or better, maybe one of your top 2 wide receivers.
Yeah. I actually had a wideout that I really liked, and the more and more I thought about it, I kind of come to the conclusion that I was wrong and needed to go with the 106 here.
Yeah. So heading into the 408, Justin Jefferson, Mark Andrews, and Kenneth Walker will be joined by Kirk Cousins. I think it's time. I don't typically like taking veteran quarterbacks before like the 6th round, but this quarterback pool is a barren wasteland in my opinion. It at any point in time, if Luigi decided to snipe Cousins from me, there's a big fall off from my next guy after Cousins.
He was going the next pick, so you did the right thing.
Yeah, I don't. It was a little uncomfortable for me because I don't generally go into drafts and start building win now teams unless the draft sends me that direction. I couldn't see a way around it. Going into the 5th round and having to take somebody like Goff or Stafford as my QB1 just didn't feel good. So I kind of felt forced to take Cousins here. Ryan, what do you think on this?
In the past, I have definitely not been a Cousins guy.
Right.
You can't argue his production, and he's tied to Justin Jefferson as long as he's there, and
now TJ Hockenson
and
Minnesota, Joe, not Detroit.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
Same division. You can see where I would get those mixed up, right?
Yeah, still crazy that they traded Hockenson in division for as little as they.
Right. So when was the last time we had a quarterback taken off the board here?
Trey Lance.
And that was at
the 312.
The 312. So not that long ago, but before Lance, wasn't it quite a long time?
Stroud, I guess.
It was Stroud.
Yeah.
Earlier in the 3rd.
So it hasn't been as long as I thought. But this feels like the first quarterback that's going to help you win this year in quite a while, in my opinion. It's been drafted in quite a while.
This is the one guy that you can say he's going to hand me my 20 points every week, and I'm going to feel good about it.
All right. So Luigi, who are we putting with Hurts, Taylor, and Olave at the 409?
I really wanted to go wide receiver here, but it's kind of a wasteland. There is a few guys that I could take there, but the way that this team is constructed, I don't want to necessarily add an older wide receiver to the team. So I decided to look at running back, and there's 2 guys that I've been struggling to decide between, and I think I'm going to go with Javonte Williams.
You suck.
Were you gonna snipe Javonte?
I just got sniped. I actually had written down JW there.
That one caught me completely by surprise. I thought that Luigi would take one of the 2 more two of the more established running backs in that position, but he did take Olave with his team to pick before, so maybe there's some precedence for it on this particular team.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen Hurts clearly isn't old. Jonathan Taylor, this is just his 3rd year in the league. And taking Chris Olave, I felt like I could go either way with this team, and I think Javonte Williams kind of helps that as well. And when I say either way, I mean maybe not necessarily have to win this year or, win next year, win the year after that.
So, Ryan, what are we doing here at the 410? Burrow, Waddle, Hockenson, and?
Well, it was going to be Javonte Williams, but I'm going to go with another one of my man crushes, and DeAndre Swift.
Okay.
See, Joe, DeAndre Swift is a Lion, and TJ Hockenson is a Viking.
That's overplayed. Let it go. But
no, we're not letting it go.
Yeah.
I hate this pick. I'm going to be absolutely honest with you. I know that a lot of the Dynasty community would disagree with me that 410 is not a perfectly reasonable place to take DeAndre Swift. But my argument to that would be is what DeAndre Swift has shown us in 3 years now to justify taking him over Saquon Barkley
or
a couple of other guys on the list. Sure.
Especially with this team that's you're heading in the
and
the win now direction.
Right, and I'm going to throw another name out there because I know that I like this guy so much more than the other two in this group. Yeah, like why do we think that, and not just Ryan, because I think this is the dynasty community in general. Why do we value DeAndre Swift so much more than Najee Harris? Najee Harris has actually proven that he can be a top-tier running back in this league. I know his numbers were down last year, but DeAndre Swift, correct me if I'm wrong, has not done anything in 3 years.
He's shown the flashes.
When he's on the field, he does.
But that's it. When he's on the field, he shows the flashes, but he's always seems to be in a timeshare.
Maybe it's just me and my man crush for Swift. Like I've always loved Swift. I believe in the talent. Maybe I'm just going to die with him and J.K. Dobbins, thinking that they're going to play better than they actually have.
Well, it's not even a case of them not playing better, in my opinion. It's a case of them not, number one, not being able to stay on the field, and number two, that whenever they are on the field, I think with Swift, I think they're so afraid that he's going to get hurt that they won't give him the ball. I don't know what the deal is with J.K. Dobbins. They just seem to not want to give that man touches, even whenever he's healthy.
But when has he been healthy?
Well, that's true, but
it may be I think it's the same thing. They're afraid to give him the ball because he hasn't been able to stay healthy.
But when he's on the field, he's really good.
I feel like even was it his rookie year, or which year did he get hurt the first time? Was his rookie year or his second year?
He's been hurt ever since he's been in college.
The first time he was actually on the field, I feel like that he was very productive, and they just kept not giving him the football.
Yeah, he was averaging over 5 yards a carry, and
he's done that his entire career. When he's on the field, he's averaging a lot, and they just refuse to give it to him.
He's kind of like a more injured Miles Sanders. He's just very efficient.
Okay, so moving on to me with the 4-11, someone to put with Patrick Mahomes, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Breece Hall. Let's see. We would be at the 107 here pick-wise. That doesn't interest me. I could get a wideout that I really like, sure, but I think – I can't believe I'm doing this, but you guys have kind of forced me into it. I think I'm going to take Saquon Barkley here. He's not a player that I want to own shares of this year. As I stated a couple of weeks ago, I think the value here, though, I think we all value Saquon similarly, and it's much less than the dynasty community at large. So that's why I feel like at the end of the fourth round, Saquon feels like a safe pick to me here.
He could be one of those guys that you draft in the startup, and once point scoring season happens, you can trade him to a team that is looking to put more points on the board.
Well, hopefully, if Hall comes back healthy, this team's going to be in the mix anyways. But
that's fair.
But Barkley was, as much as I don't like Barkley for the injuries and other reasons, he was the running back 5 last year, and that's hard to deny at the end of the fourth round. So I kind of feel like I was forced into the pick, but I am happy with it. It could be worse. I could have taken DeAndre Swift.
Ouch.
I mean, to be like I'm looking at Luigi's team here, looking ahead to the pick. To me, there's a clear guy that just fits this team and just screams like pick me.
I think there's 2 guys actually, so I'll be actually really curious to see which one of them he takes, if either. But wrap us up here on for the episode, Luigi. What are we doing? What are we adding to Allen, Kelce, and Christian McCaffrey? Doesn't have to be a very good pick for a win now team.
So, like I stated before, when I took Travis Kelce, I think the win now window for this team is probably 2 to 3 years, and I'm going to stick with that style, and I'm going to take the first wide receiver for this team, and I'm going to go Devontae Adams.
Yeah, he was one of my 2 guys.
I'll put a big check right there. I knew who that guy was going to be.
Well, I thought there was a chance he could go Jacobs because of his love of the running back position, but this is the one that I would have taken probably in this spot if I was him.
There is some uncertainty with Jacobs. Like he is going to be.
I think there's uncertainty with Adams, but I think at the end of the day, it's Devontae Adams. And while he's not the Devontae Adams of 3 or 4 years ago, he's still showed last year that he had some of his ability. And it doesn't really matter who's throwing him the football, whether it's Jarrett Stidham or
I know this is hypothetical, but it would not surprise me at all if he has the guy throwing to him that he had in Green Bay throwing to him.
So
That
that's a
wouldn't surprise me either.
possibility. I'm gonna go back to Ron's last point of there's some question marks with Jacobs. There's one question mark in my opinion. Where is he going to be playing?
That's the big one.
But that guy's a stud. So and I can actually see Swift over Josh Jacobs, even though I have Jacobs 3 spots ahead of him in my personal rankings. But if you're clearly geared to a win now approach, why would you ever take DeAndre Swift over Josh Jacobs? One guy's proven it, the other guy hasn't.
This team is not 100% geared there. Like,
it became that way when you took Swift over Saquon Barkley. It was definitely geared in that direction before that.
I think of your 4 teams that you picked for today, I would think that one is the most win now team.
It's the most likely to win now, but like it's Joe Burrow, Jalen Waddle, TJ Hockenson, and DeAndre Swift. Like there's nothing there that says you're winning right now.
All right, let's wrap this up. Let's do a little recap here. We're not going to name all the picks and all the teams and all that. Luigi will post that on the YouTube page. Let's go around the table, starting with you, Ryan. Your favorite team of the 3 you drafted?
The 4 you drafted.
The 4 you drafted, excuse me. Thank you, Luigi.
My favorite team of mine is the Kyler Murray, Trey Lance, Kyle Pitts, Devonta Smith team. Love the quarterbacks. I have what I think is an elite tight end, even though his production wasn't there last year. And Devonta Smith is an ascending wideout. I love that team.
It's a good start to a win later team. Luigi, where would you go with your favorite team of the 4?
I think my favorite team is pretty obviously the team 1, the team that had the number 1 overall pick, with Josh Allen, Devontae Adams, Christian McCaffrey, and Travis Kelce. I think if that team stays healthy, it's probably one of the favorites through the first 4 rounds to win the championship.
Yeah, it's really hard to argue that that's not the best win now team after 4 picks. I have a win now team that I really like, but I just don't think it measures up to that at this point.
Well, you could argue that you have the best player production-wise at four positions. Like Devontae Adams wasn't, but you could argue he has that upside.
Everybody on their team has upside of
yes. Like they're all elite talents.
I agree. So my favorite team, and mostly because it's the only team I have with 2 quarterbacks at this point, is the team 4 with Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, DK Metcalf, and the 104. I think that Lamar Jackson is not a player that I've loved in the past, as I've stated, but I'm kind of excited if this was an actual team, kind of excited to have my first share of him. Deshaun Watson, despite what people may think about him off the field, and I get all that, I feel like he's going to be an extremely productive quarterback in the NFL this year. I fully expect that he's probably going to beat his draft position. I think he might be one of the few quarterbacks that we drafted today that may beat where we drafted him. DK Metcalf, I was ecstatic to get a guy like DK Metcalf at the end of the 3rd round after going hard at quarterback in the first 2 rounds. I did not expect to get a youngish wide receiver of his caliber at that pick. I loved getting the 104 in this position because it gives me lots of flexibility. And I do think that could turn into Jahmyr Gibbs or the best wideout in the stupid landing spot down the road.
Or you could luck out and get quarterback there. Just depends on how the first 3 picks go. One of the Bryce Young or CJ Stroud.
Yeah, well, in this exercise, it's highly unlikely that Ryan would just slam 2 quarterbacks there. But yes, you're absolutely
if Ryan keeps those particular picks, he could end up trading them for better value. Who knows where they would be heading?
That's true. And
liquid assets like that are very flexible in that way.
Yeah.
So I think that the point here, I think we kind of sort of made it several times over the last during this show. Is if you've got a question between a player and a pick, you probably should take the pick.
Yeah.
If it's close, you take the flexibility.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys. Now let's do best pick. Don't pick somebody that you drafted, but let's do best pick in the draft. Luigi, let's start with you on this one.
So knowing my love of running backs and looking at the team to where he was drafted at the end of the 4th round, I think Barkley has to be considered my favorite pick of the draft because he went to a team that had Patrick Mahomes, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Breece Hall. And adding Barkley to that team, I think, makes it one of the better contenders of the league.
Yeah, I was really, even though I'm not a Barkley guy, I was really happy with the spot. It feels right at the end of the 4th round.
Yeah, he's just solid. Like, assuming he can stay healthy like he did this year, he's going to be a top 10 running back.
For the sake of non-argument, let's just assume everybody stays healthy. That could very well be a league winner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
for sure.
Ryan, who's your best pick?
My best pick was actually the 104. Like, looking at that roster, I love the flexibility that it gives. Like, if you decide that you're in love with Gibbs and Gibbs falls into the great landing spot, that's great. If not, you can take one of the wideouts, or it just gives so much flexibility to that roster.
Yeah, and I think it could go win now or win later to whatever I decide to do here. And yeah, I was after some debate earlier that felt like easily the right pick.
Another one of those things where when in doubt, just take the pick.
Take the pick, baby. Take the pick. With my best pick, and I'm going to have to give myself an assist on this. I'm going to go with TJ Hockenson. I'm a believer in tight end premium, that you take tight ends early. And with Pitts and Mark Andrews already off the board, as I stated earlier.
And Travis Kelce.
Kelce, was he off the board at this point?
Yes.
He was off the board. You're correct. I would not have taken Kelce over Hockenson. I have him ahead of Kelce because of the age gap. But to me, those are the 4 elite tight ends this year. And scooping up the last one of them was exactly the right pick for Ryan. Should have been mine, but I made the first big mistake in mock drafts in this podcast by not remembering that TJ Hockenson was no longer a Detroit Lion.
I actually have Hockenson and Andrews interchangeable.
I don't have them interchangeable, but I don't think the gap is far. I think the gap between Andrews and Hockenson is less to me than the gap between Hockenson and Kelce.
As far as passing was, Hockenson has a much better quarterback.
Hockenson does have a much better quarterback, but Andrews
who's the quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens?
That's true. We don't know that at this point in time.
It's that Wildcat running back, right?
Yeah, but it might not be him. Maybe he's not there next year. But I think why I like Andrews a little bit better is just because he's going to demand so much target share with not having Justin Jefferson on his team. But
there has definitely been game plans where Hockenson has gotten peppered since he's been there.
Well, that's because there's 12 guys on Justin Jefferson.
Exactly.
No, I'm agreeing with you. That's what makes him. That's what makes TJ Hockenson so valuable, in my opinion, going from Detroit to Minnesota, is because the game plans TJ Hockenson is going to be open way more often now than he was in Detroit.
In single coverage, he's way too fast and athletic for a linebacker, and way too big, strong and physical for a safety.
Yeah, I agree.
He's just a huge mismatch.
Yeah. He's still his targets are still going to be tempered because of Justin Jefferson.
Right, but the quality is going to go up, in my opinion.
Yes, we've already seen that.
Exactly.
I don't think he's not going to continue to get better.
No.
His biggest question mark the whole time has been whether or not he could stay on the field. And he showed it this year. And he was on the field this year, and he showed how elite he can be.
Yeah. We're going to transition to the worst pick here. So, guys, same thing. Don't pick one of your own guys. Pick someone else's. I really kind of hate to do this. I should have picked someone else, but I've already kind of let the cat out of the bag. I absolutely hated the DeAndre Swift pick, and the reasons why have been stated already. So let's just move on to Ryan and get his worst pick.
Well, my worst pick is actually my favorite pick as well, because it allowed me to get TJ Hockenson, and that's Breece Hall. I feel like that guy is just kind of a reach there.
Well, explain to me why, because you kind of liked other than the fact that you got TJ Hockenson, you kind of said you liked the pick at the time.
I like the player and like the guy, but it's just like it's my hate for taking running backs that early, and I think that's my
It
biggest
was
issue.
third round, though.
Yeah, it was the
Fairness.
second
It was
pick of the third
third
round.
So,
I mean, I didn't take one until Travis Etienne in the fourth round.
now that's true. That's true. But who would you have taken? Who would you, just out of curiosity, to say that Hawk wasn't on the board? Who would you have taken there? I guess any of the Olave or Wilson or something
I would
that.
have definitely taken Olave or Wilson.
So he would have, and that's at that point that would have made sense. Sure.
And I was actually surprised with your love of wideouts that you didn't go in that position as well.
Well, he already had Amon-Ra St. Brown and Patrick Mahomes. He probably needed to take Hockenson or a running back there, in my opinion.
I did want to kind of get out of my comfort zone a little bit in this mock too. But obviously, I would have absolutely 100%.
If you had been on the clock in a real draft, you would
have known that it was
you would
TJ
have
Hockenson.
I would have taken Hockenson.
And Breece Hall would have not been taken over Olave or Wilson as well.
You're wrong.
Because Luigi would have went all
at my second team.
Yeah.
I would have gone Breece Hall. Breece Hall was going at my next pick. I was actually super surprised that Joe took him, considering Joe's.
That's what I'm saying. Like he would not have. He in a real draft, he's going to take Hockenson first, and he's going to take either Olave or.
Not so sure that I wouldn't have taken Hall over Olave in that situation. It would have been interesting to see if this had been live. But Luigi, what was your worst pick?
I think my worst pick, just because of where I have him ranked as compared to other players that went after him. I think my worst pick is Justin Fields. He was taken at the 109, and off the top of my head, there's 4 quarterbacks that I have above Justin Fields.
Yeah, I would have easily taken Jackson, Watson, Prescott, or Murray over Fields, and
maybe even Tua. If
I would not take Tua, I disagree with that. Just because of the concussion situation, I'm even considering the
let's be honest. Joe wouldn't have taken Tua if he was completely healthy.
But it's just not true, Ryan. I mean, you can make that joke all you want to, but I've stated many times in 3 weeks on this show that I have Tua where he's at because of the concussion issues. I would actually probably have Tua over Fields if it wasn't for concussion issues, because believe it or not, I think Tua is a better quarterback than Justin Fields.
I mean, Tua is a better quarterback than Dak Prescott.
That's absolutely that's absurd.
He's a better quarterback than Lamar Jackson.
That's.
He's a better
not in fantasy.
He's a better thrower of the football than Lamar Jackson.
Yes, it's absurd at this point into his career to say he's better than Dak Prescott, in my opinion. No way. But going back to the Fields thing, yeah, just way too early. But I did challenge Ryan to not take Fields where he thought we would let him drop to, but take him where he actually would take him. So I was glad that he did that. This was an honest assessment of Ryan where he thinks
right.
Justin
Like
Fields
that. This is me on my soapbox saying this is where I believe Justin Fields belongs.
He could have gotten 4 quarterbacks later.
I could have faded Justin Fields and got what I would have considered tremendous value, but in a real startup, I don't know what other people around me are thinking as well. So I'm going to take the guy that I believe in.
Yeah. So with that being said, we're going to wrap it up here. That'll do it for the 4th episode of the Dynasty Dreamerz podcast. Thank you guys for joining us. Please leave any comments below. We would love to hear what some of you think about today's mock draft. We hope you join us next time. For my co-hosts, Luigi Federico and Ryan Nunn, this has been Joe Galloway signing off.